Are you a therapist who wants to start a private practice but you're feeling stuck and afraid? Then you won't want to miss this episode, because in this episode of the Mental Health Toolbox, we are talking with well-known private practice coach Allison Puryear of Abundance Practice Building. She shares with us her tips on how to start a successful private therapy practice. So let's go.
Learning to put yourself out there in the ways that work. I think that's the skill to learn, and it is not hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not. It's a different way of thinking, because often therapists don't like to be the center of attention, and it feels very like, look at me, when you're putting yourself out there. But if you reframe that to helping your potential clients find you, you're able to really see marketing as a service instead of this showy thing that you're doing to stroke your own ego.
Allison Puryear, rhymes with career, is a licensed clinical social worker and certified eating disorder specialist, and is a therapist who burned out on agency work and then built successful private practices in 3 wildly different markets. After her caseloads grew faster in each saturated market, Allison realized that practice building is not rocket science when you have clarity, confidence, and a figured-out formula. So Allison started Abundance Practice Building to help other therapists build their own full and happy private practices. You can learn more about Allison's work and get her free checklist on how to build a private practice by visiting her website, abundancepracticebuilding.com. So let's meet Allison. Hello, Allison, and thank you so much for making time to be on the Mental Health Toolbox podcast today. I really appreciate it. Huge fan, and I've been looking forward to this interview. So thank you so much for jumping on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yes, my pleasure. So I know quite a bit about you because I've been following you for I don't know how many years. You've been a great inspiration to me in starting a private practice and all things in that realm and online space and social media, and you're killing it in that space.
Yay.
You do great work. So I feel like I know you. I feel like we're friends because because you have such an online presence, especially Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. I mean, you're everywhere. So provide so much value. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I'm happy to. It's what I love to do. So it works out.
I can tell you're so genuine, and it's like, when you're working in a clinic with other therapists and you walk to Starbucks and between sessions and chew the fat, you just seem like that kind of therapist, or you could just hang out with, so I appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it shows. So I know quite a bit about you, but why don't you go ahead and start us off by sharing a little bit about your history, what you're passionate about, and kind of what you would like to share in terms of your nuggets of wisdom today.
Yeah. So I've been a therapist. I graduated from grad school 2003 or 4. So I guess coming up on 20 years almost. And I have been an eating disorder therapist for most of my career. Also worked at a sexual assault center for a while. As I was moving through my career as a people-pleasing, like gold star kind of a worker, I was really surprised at how unhealthy a lot of the different agencies and nonprofits that I was working for, how toxic those environments could be. Being willing to say yes to pretty much anything I was asked to do by my supervisors did not protect me from the toxicity in the ways that it had maybe in other areas of my life of just like fawning all over the place. So I found that, even if you're following all the rules and going above and beyond again, if that didn't protect you from just the nonsense of bureaucracy or money hoarding or whatever was going on with the various places I worked over the years, probably nothing would. So I got to a point, my husband and I were about to move cross country, and I was like, I can't do this in another place again. Like, I just can't. And so we moved from Georgia to Seattle. And I'd had a part-time private practice for 5 years in addition to my full-time job in Georgia. And when we moved to Seattle, I was like, I just want to do it. Like, I just want to go full-time private practice and let that be my thing. Cause I know I can keep on top of myself of the things that need doing in private practice. And I also know I deserve to have time off that I've either earned or would like to have. And it was rough at first. This was a time when there weren't private practice consultants out there. There were a couple books, and overall, I was like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what stuck as my marketing strategies. Like, pro tip, don't do that. And
no need now, right?
Yeah. And figured out like, okay, well, here are the things that are working. And private practice was such a different ballgame. It felt so different from any job I'd ever had, even the ones that were considered like the really good ones that were hard to get. It was such a different experience. My life was so much easier because I had far more time than I'd ever had. I was used to working 50, 60-hour weeks. And here I was taking 3 or 4 hour dog walks at the shore. Like, it was a very different way of living. And I started bullying my friends into private practice, just like hardcore peer pressure. Yeah, it was all coming from love. And realizing that like the things that I had done worked for my friends too, and they were scattered across the country. And so it wasn't just like, here's what works in Seattle. Then we moved back to the Southeast, and I knew we were putting down roots here. I started my private practice. It started going swimmingly, and I got sad that I wasn't going to get a chance to start over again. And so I decided to kind of like be a stage mom for other people who wanted to start private practices.
Well, thank goodness for that.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't be here if you hadn't.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's what I love, because I honestly, truly in my heart know that private practice is a better situation for 99% of therapists. And what we do really matters. It's really important. And I know too many people who've left the profession because they worked crappy jobs that treated them like they weren't valuable. And if that happens in private practice, like, that's on you. So you can, you can.
You're going to complain about yourself.
Yeah. So I've been doing that. I've been doing that as a job since 2014.
Wow. That's very exciting.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, I can tell. And you've started, I believe, 3 private practices in 3 different states, right?
Yeah. Georgia, Washington, and North Carolina.
Yeah. So you know your stuff.
Yeah.
You know what works.
I do.
Right. So, I mean, it's just, you're such an inspiration. And I'm wondering, since you got into this coaching, put on your coaching hat, are you still maintaining your practices like as much as you were before, or right now is it strictly coaching?
I can't give up therapy. I love it too much. I own a group practice, and I see 3 clients right now, and they're clients I've had a long time. They've like come in when life situations have shifted. They came back, and I just love them. And I'm not like, there's no reason for me to not see them. So right. I market the group practice, but I don't market myself, and anybody new goes to someone else. So, yeah.
Nice. That's a whole other thing, a group practice. I wasn't even thinking about asking that question, but that's a whole different category, because there's private practice and then there's starting a group practice, and they're
which is a totally different thing. And I'm lucky. I'm good friends with Maureen Warbach of the Group Practice Exchange. So anything and everything I did write about group practice was from like her advice. Because it feels like a natural next step for a lot of therapists. They're full. They continue to get referrals. They're like, oh, let me just take on another therapist. But they don't have the infrastructure set up, either from a legal or an accounting perspective. They don't have the leadership training that is necessary, because being a great therapist has nothing to do with being a great boss. And I would say part of my success as a practice building coach comes from all those therapists who just decided to start adding therapists to their practice and make a group practice without any sort of thoughtful planning about how to make it a healthy work environment.
Wow. Yeah. So again, great resource. you are to tap, because that's, I imagine, for, that would be the next goal for anyone starting off in private practice, would be then to start a group practice, right? Because then you can
Often.
scale it. You can only scale yourself so much.
Yeah. To be honest, like I dissuade people from it more than I encourage people, because a lot of the time it's about like, well, I'd like to have some more kind of quote unquote passive income. Um, and I get that. I mean, I am very open to people admitting to me that they like money. I like money too. I don't think it's
Right?
anything to be shameful for.
Creates opportunities.
Yeah, you can do all sorts
Serve
of
more
great stuff
people.
with money.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when somebody is wanting to scale in some way, like the profit margins with a group practice are actually pretty slim. It is not the best way to create more income. And if what you want is more income, we don't have to involve other people necessarily with that, especially other professionals who've been in other traumatic job experiences. If you really want to get back to your community and you really want to provide excellent leadership and a healthy work environment, then yes, please start a group practice. But if you want more money, there are many other ways. And I
Right.
suggest those instead.
Yes. It seems to me that when you're starting to manage other people, then it becomes, you're less in control of the contributing factors to the stress, right? Because
Yes.
any number of exponential things can go wrong,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Excellent. So I just have so many questions I want to dive in with you.
Yeah.
Sounds like you've been on quite a journey. You said in a recent Ask Allison episode that when starting off in private practice, it's better to invest in coaching than like office furniture,
Mhm.
right? Can you talk a little bit
Yes.
more about that? Because I think that's a
Yeah.
really, when somebody's starting off, there's so many things, expenses that maybe you
Mhm.
don't factor in. And especially if you're just trying to get the boat close enough to the dock to jump from agency work to private practice, you don't necessarily have, a big, a lot of seed money to do that, right?
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
every dollar counts.
Absolutely. So I think about it like if you're in this place where you are I love this analogy of trying to get the boat close enough to the dock to jump. The vast majority of the time, the reason the boat isn't there is because money, right? Like you
Mhm.
need more money to feel safe making that leap. And if you have enough in savings or you have enough trust in your ability, then it makes that leap less scary. So I'm somebody who, like, I love a beautifully designed room. I love my office. I love my house. Like, I really value and care about how a space feels and looks.
Mhm.
And I still, if I was starting over from scratch right now, would spend my money like maybe Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace my furniture and
Mhm.
spend my money on something that's going to make me money. And any good business coaching or private practice coaching should absolutely be making you money, not immediately, because it's not how it works. I wish it was.
Mhm.
But within a few months, you should be making far more than you spent. And I've never had a couch make me money. So if you're in a place where
Unless
you
you're
don't
living
have
on
a,
it.
yeah, I would love for somebody to design that couch. Yes, but I'm not working that couch, so to speak. So if somebody is in a place where they don't have a ton of money right now and they're trying to find the most bang for their buck, it's
Mhm.
going to be putting it into some coaching. And I'm not even saying it needs to be with me. There are other great practice building coaches out there. And it's finding the person that you feel like you're going to listen to and the model that works for you. If you are not somebody who's going to work well, like with a self-paced course kind of thing, then don't, even
Mhm.
if you like a coach, don't choose their program because it's not going to work for you if you're not going to log in.
Right.
If you
Accountability.
need,
Yeah.
yeah. And you'd be surprised how many people we've been like, oh, yeah, I didn't really get a lot out of this. And we look and they literally signed in for 2 minutes over 6 months. And I'm like, well,
Mhm.
there's a reason.
Mhm.
But finding somebody that resonates with you, somebody that has a model that works for the way that you learn, and put your money there so that you can start making more money.
Excellent. Excellent advice. Yeah, I remember about I don't know, 2 years ago, I was grocery shopping. I was listening to one of your episodes and you were talking about like when to use a credit card in business very, very carefully and when not
Mhm.
to. And I think the one exception was on something that gives money back to you, an
Yes.
investment. That's it.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Don't go on a shopping spree to decorate your office and then, you know, kick yourself later because
Right. Because now you've just got
you
a really
you started your
pretty.
business off on in debt.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely.
Excellent. Um, in your vast experience, what do you perceive as some of the biggest challenges for therapists starting off? Right,
Yeah, I
grassroots.
think the thing I see most is not either believing in themselves too much or not believing in themselves enough. There's kind of a false confidence that can come because a lot of people know, like, I'm a really great therapist. I can do this private practice thing. And they can be amazing private practice therapists, just like they're amazing agency therapists, but they have to learn different skills. And so the overconfident people tend to think that because they're great therapists, they're going to automatically have a bunch of people refer clients to them. And even if you're pretty well known in your community, that doesn't always happen. And that can feel really devastating. And then people slide from maybe overconfidence to where everybody else started, which is, I'm going to fail. I don't know what I'm doing. Like total imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is, like, none of us studied marketing, right? I mean, maybe somebody did it in undergrad or
Yeah, they
something,
don't
but
really teach you
like,
that in grad school, not at least not
no,
therapy school. Yeah.
definitely not. I mean, I feel like mine did the opposite, right? Of like, don't ever call any attention to yourself in any
Mm-hmm.
possible way,
Same with
or
me.
you're just the
No
wrong
online
kind of.
accounts, no Facebook, no being visible,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Don't
Yeah.
even have a family picture up
Mm-hmm.
back when we used to frame things and not just have it on our phones. Uh, so, um, learning to put yourself out there in the ways that work, I think that's the skill to learn, and it is not hard. It's
Mm-hmm.
really not. It's a different way of thinking, because often therapists don't like to be the center of attention, and it feels very like, look at me
Mm-hmm.
when you're putting yourself out there. But if you reframe that to helping your potential clients find you, you're able to really see marketing as a service instead of this showy thing that you're doing to stroke your own ego or your fear of people perceiving it that way, I should say.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that was weird for me. Still is a
Mhm.
little bit, getting on and or posting even the podcast and stuff years later, and it still kind of feels like a little, because I'm that guy who doesn't like to be center stage, like you said,
Mhm.
I'm used, comfortable kind of being a quiet, serving quietly. And yeah, I mean, I don't know that it ever gets super comfortable for anybody putting themselves out
Yeah.
there, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've gotten to a point where I've done it a lot over the last
Yeah,
few
you have.
years for
Yeah.
sure. But I started out as like I had to have Klonopin for bridal showers.
Hmm.
Like I would not have made it out of the place to go to walk down the aisle for my wedding if I didn't have Klonopin on board. And
Hmm.
it was not something I took regularly. It was only when I had to be the center of attention. I really hated it. And like literally couldn't do it. I broke out into hives talking about an upcoming my upcoming bridal shower while I was chatting with one of my colleagues who was a psychiatrist.
Hmm.
And she was like, you do realize you have hives. Do you want a prescription? So it's not natural for me to want to be the center of attention. And
Hmm.
I think in order to be able to do it at the level that I do it now, I had to shift it for like what's natural for me is to be helpful and to be in any way instrumental in somebody's life being better. And in order to do that, I have to be willing to say the things I know are true and helpful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so it's about service, right?
Yeah,
Getting out of our own way so we can serve other people more and better.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. That's what keeps me in the game. Just remember, this isn't even about me. It's about providing value, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So on the whole marketing aspect, I mean, we could talk a lot about that alone, I'm sure. But what have, because I know even when I was starting off with which is still a part-time private telehealth practice, but when I was starting off, I immediately went to Psychology Today.
Hmm.
I think that's like a lot of therapists.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on, because you're very present on Instagram and obviously all of the socials, and you're very, very personable and humanistic and, funny, right? I love all of your,
Thanks.
your reels. Hilarious, hilarious. And I think that that's the, even with me as an example, is how I feel so connected to you without having ever met you,
Mhm.
is that no trust like factor.
Yeah.
How do you weigh that against something that you can do on your own, right? So versus like a paid ads or psychology
Mhm.
today. What are your thoughts around the marketing aspect of private practice?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I could not be everywhere on social media if I didn't have a whole team of people helping me with that,
I thought you
right? Like
cloned yourself.
I whew, I don't think I'd want more than one of me. But, like, I don't know how to upload a thing to YouTube, And
Mhm.
so luckily I have people working with me who are super skilled, at all these things that I really honestly suck at. But for a solo practice, which is the vast majority of people in private practice, it's knowing what you actually enjoy and will do. There's so many different ways to market your practice, like hundreds. And instead of being like, well, I guess I got to get on Instagram because clients are on Instagram.
Right.
No, like if you don't like social media, please don't get on it. God, like live your life. If you
Right.
don't like it, you're going to start to resent anything that you're doing on it. And that's going to in turn change the way you look at your practice. Like maybe you love writing, in which case, please blog. Like that's a great way
Mhm.
to be of service. It's great for search engine optimization. It's great for clients to be able to get a better feel for you. If you hate writing, please don't blog. But it's choosing. I always say no more than 5 with 2 set ones. So like definitely having a website, even if you're not techie, even if you hate writing the copy on it, that's one thing I want you to just like swallow the pill, drink some tea
Mhm.
or a glass of wine while you do it, and like just get it done. And then networking, which sounds so businessy and gross, and most people are like, "Ew, I don't want to do that." But if you're networking, you're doing the thing you're naturally good at as a therapist. You're connecting with somebody
Mhm.
else. And typically other therapists are great low-hanging fruit for networking because like you're both naturally good at connecting with people. You already have this really big important thing in common. And so, like a starter kit to networking would be to send out an email to some people either you've known in the past because you worked with them, or a friend of a friend, or just somebody who looks really nice and their copy seemed warm that you happen to like check out online. And just, I always use the subject line, I'd love to connect. And then in the body, it's just short and sweet like, hey, I also work in this part of town, or I also work with this population. I'm trying to get to know other people who are also therapists in town as a potential, like, so that I could potentially refer to you when I get referrals that aren't a great fit for me. Would you be able to meet for coffee? Would you be able to do a Skype date? Skype, what is this, like 98? Or would you be able to do a Zoom date? Um, that kind of thing. So really like no more than 5 sentences. And if you are networking and you've got a great website and that website needs to be really clearly niched, that's another really important part
Mhm.
of marketing. If I'm like, I am a therapist who really believes in the resiliency of the human spirit, and I work with people with depression and anxiety and eating disorders and substance abuse and bipolar disorder and personality disorders, like nobody who's going through, say, depression is going to land on my website and be like, her, I want her,
Mhm.
because I haven't spoken to them. And when we're
Right.
looking for a therapist, we feel very different. And we need somebody who understands that difference and talks about it very clearly.
Thank you for clarifying that. That was one of the other questions, is because I hear that a lot, th- not just that the riches are in the niches, but the service, right? As far as being found to be known for something. Like you
Hmm.
said, and I think that can be really hard for a therapist, especially coming from agency
Yeah.
practice, who is handed a very mixed bag of
Hmm.
all the problems, right?
Right.
Anything from schizophrenia to your run of the mill general anxiety, right?
Hmm.
And you're just expected to to manage all of it, right?
Hmm.
And so you kind of become a jack of all trades or a jane of all trades, right? And then
Yeah.
you get into private practice and you're supposed to pick, you know pick your favorite. And that
Right.
might, that could be very very awkward, right?
Hmm.
Because for somebody that's experienced in so many different aspects of counseling, how do you pick one, or how do you know what you're going to want to sink your teeth into? Do you have
Right.
any words of wisdom for like how to get over that mental mental barrier? I'm sure you get that a lot in your
Yeah.
your coaching business.
Yeah. So I think with niching, I usually have people look at their caseloads if they still have access to them, and to think about like, who are the clients that after each session, you're like, yes, that was awesome. Like you want to do a little dance in between because it just you felt so in flow,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you know that they were getting their needs met. If you can't parse those out, then start with the people that you felt the opposite way about at the end of session. Like, I don't know if I was any help at all. I
Mm-hmm.
don't like, I just get so nervous when I see that person, or I
Mm-hmm.
feel dread when I see them in my schedule. So sometimes it's kind of like dating in that way, right? Like you might know what you don't want based on past experiences before it's more clear what you do want.
I love that
Um,
analogy. Yeah.
yeah. And sometimes people will be like, oh, well, I've been a trauma therapist. And so since I've been a trauma therapist and there aren't enough of us, then I'm going to continue to be a trauma therapist. In which case I'd be like, well, that's lovely if that's what you want, but I want you to like stop and ask yourself honestly if that's what you want. Because sometimes we just keep going in the thing that we're known for or the thing that we know we're good at because that just feels like the logical next step. But like my thing with private practice is like, if you've got to build this whole other thing that never existed before anyway, like let's make it what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're honestly a little burned out because trauma is super hard to support day in and day out, then like it's okay if you want to like work with millennial women who feel like they have it all together and worry that they're not the kind of mom that they should be, you know?
Right.
So you can shift your niche. You're not married to it. I mean, I guess you could divorce it if you are married to
Like,
it. But there's this sense of like, if I find the people who have a real stuck place around choosing a niche are often non-committal in other areas of their life too.
mm-hmm.
And so if you're feeling really stuck with it, to be like, okay, well, does that apply to me? Am I just hard to commit to anything, period? Is that just a structure of my personality? In which case I say, choose one. Like if
Right.
you're like, I can't choose between these three, just choose one. Give it a
Mm-hmm.
go for 6 months, 6 months to a year. See how
Yeah.
it feels. If you decide it's not for you,
Trial
you can
run,
always
right?
shift.
And no pressure.
Yeah,
You can kind of A/B test it, right? You can pick like
absolutely.
two, and or even have like two different pages for your website that you promote, and see which one feels better. I mean, there's a lot of
Yeah,
ways you could play with that, right? Without, like
totally.
you said,
Yeah.
getting too rigid
As
with it.
long as it's not confusing to the people who land there, you're good.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. You had mentioned in a recent post too, on social, that you learn a lot about yourself as you build a practice, right? About, like
Yes.
you said, other areas of your life that may have been more passive, right?
Mhm.
Passive in, or have some internal conflict. And so you
Yeah.
can get a lot of clarity, like you said, because starting a practice is not just about being an autonomous therapist. It's about wearing a lot of hats, being challenged in ways that you've never been challenged, right?
Hmm.
Developing new muscles, right, in your personal development.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Marketing,
it's going to like,
business owner,
hmm
boss, etc.
yeah.
Right?
It's going to
Networking.
bring up all the stuff you thought you resolved too.
Mm.
That's another tough part is like whatever your stuff is, like your version of not enough or not good enough, it's coming back around because you're doing this big hard thing.
Right.
And it's not that you haven't done incredible work on it. It's just that I don't know that those things get fully resolved as long as you're continuing to challenge yourself in your life.
Hmm.
And
That's a
so
good sign, actually.
it is. It is. I think about it like a spiral staircase. Like
Hmm.
one of mine is like, um, everybody's relying on me and I can't let them down. Right. The hours I have spent over my lifetime in therapy of needing to like support all these people who never really asked for my support in the way that I try to offer it. Like, I mean, since I was a teenager, I've been talking about this in therapy. Right. But the version that comes around now, as I'm like doing a new thing, is like a higher level version of it where I'm like, oh yeah, there's that again.
Mm.
What's this next way that I can manage this like deep understanding of a struggle I have or of a block that gets in my way because I've done all the other levels of that staircase, all that amount of work on it, that it's just like getting to know how I work at a deeper level, which sounds very like evolved and like heady, but sucks in the moment for all of us, right? So anybody who's starting a practice right now and listening to this and just like was sitting on their bathroom floor bawling their eyes out about it yesterday, like, I know it sucks. It sucked for me. I definitely cried as many tears over my first full-time practice as I did over like my biggest heartbreak in my youth. It is hard and it is scary. And there's this whole sense of like, if I do let myself down, what does that mean about me as a person? Because letting myself down means failing. There's just a lot of fear that comes up. And it's not rocket science. You can learn what you need to learn. If you can get through grad school, you can learn anything and everything you need to learn for a private practice. It's a wholly
like we tell our
doable.
clients, right? That's why history is so important. Obviously, you can do hard things.
Yeah.
Right. Like you said, it's not like it hasn't been done before. You're not creating something new. I mean, new for you, but the concepts there, the blueprints are there. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. I love that. Thank you. It sounds like a lot of growth, personal growth work around our mindset, right?
Yes. Yes.
Mindset.
It's unavoidable, really. Like all your stuff's going to come up. Well, I guess it's your choice whether or not to work on it. But the experience of all your stuff coming up is unavoidable.
Yeah. How long do you think it typically should? I know I say should, because every situation is different. How long do you feel it should typically take for someone to go from 0 to 60 in practice, meaning a full caseload, or if they want to go part-time, whatever that means? Because I know it gets a little convoluted when we're talking about cash pay versus insurance and what that means as far as how much you want to make and so forth. But, ballpark. What, in your experience with coaching, how long does it typically take to build out a practice versus maybe solo?
So I can speak to, we have like a higher tier offer. It's more expensive. It has a lot more, like it has individual consultation and things like that.
Plus?
So yeah, Party Plus. Yeah. And so I will say first, yes, whether your cash pay or insurance is going to make a huge difference. Where you live is going to make a huge difference. Sometimes people are like, I live in a rural area. This will never work. That's not the case. It's more of like how acceptable is therapy when you're struggling where you live. Because you can live in a huge city where it's like very shut down and very like just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And it's going to be a harder place to build than like I live in kind of like a hippie community where everybody's got a therapist and a guru and tarot card reader, so
and it's not taboo.
Yeah. It also matters what your niche is. There are some niches that are more in demand than others. There's some people who niche in ways or in populations that everybody can work with. They just happen to be really great at it, right? Like somebody who niches in breakups, right? Like most therapists can absolutely help support somebody going through a breakup, but that doesn't mean that that person's not truly exceptional at it, right? But if I get a call for a breakup, I might just keep that client instead of being like, oh, substance abuse, I don't do that. Let me send you to this person. So there's so many factors. So I can only speak to Party Plus. And because we track those people, we know what they're doing. We know they're putting in the work because we're with them. And with Party Plus, what is it? Like 74% are full within 3 months.
And you'd have numbers, right? You seem like a numbers person.
I love numbers. And then on follow-up with 6 months, it's 90 something percent. I should know that second number, but it's 90 something percent.
Wow.
But again, it differs. There are the people who are not in that 90 something percent might be stuck, right? And so we're working with them to get them unstuck because we want them to have what they want. Like they were trusting us to help them get there. We want to help them. So sometimes that's a matter of they've created a block around some big important part of their practice. Like, I hear this one sometimes like, I can't network here because where I live, everybody's a total jerk. Like none of the therapists want to meet. Like, okay, well, how many emails did you send? Well, I didn't send any because none of them want to meet. And so like, okay, I can tell you how to do it. I can even give you the words, but like you still have to be the one to hit send. But I'd say if you're not full within 6 months and you've truly been working a marketing strategy, it's either you haven't been working that marketing strategy best practices. Like maybe you've been posting on Instagram, but you're just posting a bunch of quotes. Maybe you've done it 5 days a week and that's amazing, but like nobody cares about quotes. And so like, it's not best practices for Instagram.
Gotcha.
Or either you haven't been doing it best practices wise, or you haven't been doing it truly consistently. Sometimes people will be like, I've done it all right. And I'm like, okay, let's look at each strategy one by one to see what's not working. And they might be using best practices, but they're not being consistent enough for it to be effective. And so usually those are the two culprits. If after 6 months, you're not either full or very much on your way to full.
Yeah, imagine you can get, and there's whole strategies just around outreach, right? Because that begs the question, is hunting people down on LinkedIn and emailing them better, or is Instagram, because you're not limited to searches and you can find specific people and DMing them there. In your experience, kind of what's the better sandbox to network?
I think it depends. I think most people aren't checking Instagram regularly. Like if I logged into Instagram, I'd be embarrassed LinkedIn. If I logged into LinkedIn right now, I would be embarrassed by how many unread messages I have and like whatever they call friend requests on there. Because like, it's not an engaging platform for me. That's not to say it's not useful, but it's not the place that I'm spending my time. I would rather go to LinkedIn to get somebody's contact information and use that email there.
Gotcha.
So if you're talking about other therapists, I would probably just find their email through their website or their contact form through their website and just go directly from there.
Smart. Makes more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that would be, for me, that would be a stumbling block. It's like, okay, I have all of these options. Which one? Because you don't always know. You would know,
right?
You do this,
right? Well, I mean, if you think about it from like a therapist perspective, are you going to be more likely to check your work email? Probably so, because you've got clients emailing,
right?
And so that's a good way to make it more likely to be seen. Not always. Some of us hate email, right? But like more likely.
Absolutely, it's where our eyes and attention, right?
Right.
Instagram, LinkedIn, those are more sometimes drive by or kill time, right? Even for someone in business, right? Only someone, or they may not even manage their own social media, right?
Right. That's true.
But most business owners do have eyes on their email. Makes sense. Yeah, excellent. So that also begs the question, when you're talking about marketing and building a practice, telehealth versus brick and mortar, right? Because it wasn't really, I mean, there was no such conversation pre-pandemic so much. When I started my private telehealth, it actually was just pre-pandemic. And the whole purpose behind that was, it was very part-time. It was maybe to help pay off some student debt and something that didn't take away from family time. And that was my value. I was like, I'm not going to take time away from my kids and my wife unless absolutely necessary, at least with the least amount of fallout, right?
Right.
I want to have more autonomy in that sense. And so then, boom, the pandemic hit, and suddenly telehealth was a thing.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like taboo anymore. But what are your thoughts on that? Like hybrid, brick and mortar, strictly telehealth? What is that?
Yeah, I think it depends on the therapist. Either way is great, right? Like I'm pro whatever works for the therapist. I think sometimes therapists will be like, well, I'm totally going to do online. Then I don't have to pay for rent somewhere. It's like easier. I can stay home. I have tried to work from home before the pandemic. Working from home makes me as a human being terribly depressed. Like I'm somebody who has to get out in the world every single day, or I don't know what happens. Something bad happens. And so knowing that yourself, and I think the only way to know is to do it. I think a lot of us had the experience during COVID or during earlier COVID, where we were like, okay, we're all working from home. This is the way it's going. I also don't love telehealth personally. Something about the like, I love it for consulting, but for therapy, it feels different for me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I love having my, like, very few clients in person now.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's trusting that whatever is a better fit for you will work, because it really will. You could do either one or both.
Yeah. Okay. So it's very much a personal decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
Neither is better or worse than the other. It's just how
Yeah.
you want to build, what makes sense for you,
Yeah.
building out your
Unless
practice.
maybe like if you're working specifically with like octogenarians or something, like if
Mm-hmm.
you're working with a very aged population who has never been on Zoom or whatever, then maybe not. But if you're working with anybody like younger than that, it's
Consider
probably
the
fine.
audience. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I really appreciate that. Lots of words of wisdom. Um,
Yeah.
and there are some very specific kind of brass tacks things that come along with starting to practice. It's not
Mhm.
just about theory, strategy, mentality, right? There's some brass tacks. And you have a great checklist on that, by the
Thank
way.
you.
Very
Yeah.
well
I love
done.
that
Very well
thing.
done. Yeah, and I think that's probably where everybody likes a roadmap,
hmm
and
Yeah.
that's
And those are the things like nobody gets excited about anything on that list, but they're excited to have the list. Right. Because like we all need to know how to get an EIN number. We
Mhm.
all need to know how to find out if we need to like get a business permit in our city. So there are these boring, annoying things that we have to do to get our practice going to get to the good stuff.
Mhm.
And while it's probably not the best idea to put out a whole list of boring, annoying things, it's helped tens of thousands of people. So, like, I'm very happy to have put it out there and given people an opportunity to get going the right way because I really don't want anything to bite anybody in the butt.
Yeah, gotcha. Very, very well done, and lots of humor in there too, which I love.
I try.
Yeah, it's very good. It shows. So where can our listeners learn more about you?
Yeah. So our
Work
website's the
you're
best
doing.
place, abundancepracticebuilding.com. When you're building your businesses, choose something with fewer letters. That is a
Mhm.
lot to type in. But abundancepracticebuilding.com, we've got a lot of free resources on there. We have our paid programs on there, um, videos, blogs, podcasts, all of it.
This is you, right?
That's me.
Woohoo! You're so fun.
Thank you.
I love the way you pronounce it too. Abundance makes me like a dance party.
Yeah, like the Abundance Party is one of our
I love it.
offers. And
I
that
love
was
it.
like just a beautiful pun coming together just as I needed it
Yes, I love it.
to.
Caught on right away. So Allison Puryear rhymes with career, and this is everything you've got going on, plus
Mhm.
plus some. Checklist, blog, podcast, obviously worksheets. I love your Ask Allison series.
Thank you.
Um, I know we're crunching on time. I just, for our listeners, what is the best place to catch you on that? Because I know you're on Facebook, you're doing the Instagram, and you put them up on the podcast.
Yeah.
What is the best? Do you do those live? It almost seems like sometimes they're live.
They're not live. There were long, long ago, they were live back when I was doing like 3 a week, which was just a lot of
I think I remember
content.
that. Yes, that's what I'm
Yeah.
referring to.
Um, but what we do is we put them on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook on Monday of every week. And then that same episode is on the podcast on Saturday. And the podcast is called the Abundant Practice Podcast.
Yes, I've been an
And
avid listener
so,
for years. Love it.
yay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so if somebody is like more of a podcast person than a video person like me, then you don't have to worry about catching it online. You can just listen to the pod.
Excellent. And I know firsthand to grab that checklist, super easy, right? Just subscribe to your newsletter through the tab here,
Mhm.
and you've got it right there. You have a YouTube channel as well, right?
Yeah, we do.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. And all the links are right up here on your site for anybody who
Mhm.
wants to find you, right? Very well
Yep.
done. Very easy peasy. Wonderful. And then, yeah, if any of our listeners have follow-up questions for you, would it be okay to have you back on down the road? Maybe check in.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
You're
Happy
a
to.
wealth of information. So uh, happy to have you on now, and hopefully again in the future. Just love everything you're about. So
Well, thank you.
good stuff. My pleasure. Well, it's been fun. Thank you so much for making time today. It's North Carolina. It's probably pushing 1 o'clock. So
Yep.
probably Got some stuff to handle, lunch and all that good stuff. So my day is just getting started here in LA.
Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning. All right, Allison. Well, I appreciate you and all of the time you spent sharing your wisdom. And I wish you a blessed week.
You too. Take care.
Hey, if you're getting value from this content and you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to the MHT newsletter. That way you don't miss out on any new content as it's released, and as my gift to you, you'll have some free resources waiting for you there. Also be sure to subscribe and like on the YouTube channel and podcast, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts if you have a moment. It helps to raise mental health awareness and push it out to more people. Also be sure to share with friends and family, and it helps to support this channel. Thank you so much for your support. Well, there you have it. Another tool to help you thrive. Well, until next time, make good things happen. Bye-bye.